My name is Debbie Kirby. I'm a certified peer counselor, peer recovery coach for the Trueblood program in Thurston Mason County.
So I'm Ronnie Batchelor, and I work in the Tri-Cities with Lord's Crisis Response Unit, and I'm the Trueblood Mobile Outreach peer. And what I do with them is go alongside my peers and support.
At Thurston County, we're very, very committed to getting to know that peer. And so we meet them before they get out. It doesn't happen all the time, because sometimes they get released and we're like, what? You know, and we're working with the criminal justice system. We're working with a lot of people, a lot of wheels are turning. So, but oftentimes we'll go in, and I just visited a class member before I came to this conference. He didn't know I was coming, but I sat down with him and I said, hey, I'm Debbie, and I just want to tell you a little bit about me, and I want to talk to you a little bit about you, and what are your, why do you think you are here? What happened to you? Can I best support you when you come out? What are some things before you get out that you're worried about right now? You're sitting in your bunk 24/7 writing, oh no, I'm not gonna, what are some of the things before you get out that you have questions about, or that is going to drive your program?
I meet them at their parents' house, a shed in the backyard of their grandparents' house. I meet them out on the street, homeless. I meet them when they're in full meltdown because somebody's called me and told me, look, this is what's happening. So I do engage with them at the jail. If they're coming out, I'll show up and give them a ride, where they gotta go. We have a conversation. I may not have met them before I even came to give them the ride. I just tell them, hey, look, I'm your taxi, where are we going? And we hang out, and they get to know me, and they're like, who are you? And I'm like, well, I'm Ronnie, and my role is a peer, but I'm just here to find out what your needs are. Let's roll. And we go, right? And I'm meeting them where they're at, but at the same time, I don't want a level of disconnect. So I want to meet them kind of as a friend, but not really a friend, but a professional kind of relationship, but yet closer than that. Because I want them to be able to communicate to me what their needs are. What are you mad about? What happened to you? I want to elicit answers from them. And so when I'm doing the kind of interviews that we have to do, some people call them forensic interviewing, or some people call them motivational interviewing. But it's it's a matter of just trying to talk to them and get them to know that, look, I got you, bud. Not everybody understands where you're at. I do. And I'm not here to judge you. So what are we doing? Where are we going? I want to be here to support you.
And then also, basically tell them, listen, I'm a peer. I'm like you. I'm just like you. I'm not a police officer. I'm not a clinician. I was where you were at years ago. So creating that safety, trying to develop that safety first off. so that when they get released and we pick them up, they already say, well, you know, I feel safe. Because oftentimes if we don't get to connect with them, they don't know who I am, and they're not opening up in any way. But, you know, creating that safety before, we are able to kind of get farther quicker with those folks.
I think that when someone experiences what I experienced growing up, and just those life circumstances that happen, and you're making mistakes and you don't know how to correct those mistakes, and you're not getting the support that you need, and you're making more and more, and then when you've come to this realization your mental health is not good and you need help with that, and then you're not getting that help, you do other things to kind of soothe those things away, you know. And so I know what my recovery was, and I know how I got there, and I know that I was alone. I was very afraid of recovery and taking responsibility over recovery. But nobody was there to show me the ropes and how to get there. And I think that the work that I do, and especially with the Trueblood class, it's very significant, because I've seen too many of my friends OD. I've seen too many of my friends go in and out of jails.
My own experiences. You know, Trueblood's my story, you know, basically. I came involved with the criminal justice system at age of 53, you know, and I had some health issues, major operations, ended up getting addicted to the opiates, and thought I could handle this. You know, I got this. And so it was a terrain I was not used to. One. Two, I was constantly, my health was constantly being challenged. And three, I had two young babies. I carried a baby on a collapsing hip. So my whole world went upside down. And thinking it wouldn't change my whole life I was thinking, well, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to be okay. And I wasn't. And I hid a lot of my mental health issues. I was a soccer mom, so I was going to play that role. I was in the PTO, you know, and going through this journey that I went through, I constantly was like, what is going on with me? Why am I falling? You know, my mental health was going. I couldn't get off the opiates, and what happened is, you know, I eventually, when the drugs weren't working well, and my mental health was decompensating, I started shoplifting. And I've never taken anything from anybody in my entire life. And here I was committing crimes. And I'm like, you know, what is going on? And I became addicted to that process. And so, and I was finally caught at age 53. And when I became involved with the criminal justice system and the police, I said, why do you think I'm doing this? He goes, I don't know, the officer. And he goes, well, I don't know, you're bored. The understanding back then, in 2009, there was no understanding of what was going on with me. And plus, I didn't have words. I didn't know I was living in a very volatile domestic violence relationship. I was using to cover that up and that pain. And I was shoplifting to cover up that pain. So I was, you know, and I didn't have the words to tell people, well, I'm in trouble at home, or I'm in danger, I'm being hurt. So when I asked that officer that, I wanted him so desperately to know that I was in trouble.
I don't want to see somebody being mistreated by systems of care, because I've seen that happen over and over again. I want to see them get the help that they need, and the support around that help they need is pivotal to success or not. And I look at it as, you know, people talk about she's just a drug addict, or he just is an alcoholic. That's not who they are. They're in their mental health symptoms, and they're trying to do the very best that they can with what they've got. And without the support that I can give, they're going to continue to do that, and there's going to be these revolving doors. I don't like revolving doors because I've been in and out of a few of them, and it's not fun. And I've seen the aftermath that happens with that. And it's failure, failure, failure. But I got some good people in my care after I started receiving care that supported me through that. And I know that the peer role works, because when they told me, I want to see you successful, I started looking at how can I be successful. And I thought I was like not even worth that. My self-esteem was way down in the toilet. I was highly depressed. I tried to die 3 times. I planned it, I executed, and lived through it. I was pretty mad at myself at that time. I laugh at it now, but it was really serious then. So seeing somebody through their process of getting the help they need and receiving the medications that they might need to support that wellness, and then getting the support outside of those doors to succeed in whatever their life needs are and whatever their path is that they've chosen. I'm listening. I'm sharing my stories about my recovery, and I don't mind sharing those stories because they're worth something to me, and hopefully that value that I hold with that is being exchanged. And what I found that with most of my clients that I've been engaging with in Trueblood, they're ready, they're willing to do something different.
So I had something to say, right? After you've been through all this, after you've been through losing everything, building from the ground up again, you have something to offer someone else that's going through that struggle. It's almost like therapeutic in a way, because when we help others, it makes our experience worth it.
So I just continue to inspire, encourage, and the best thing that you can ever do is give somebody the opportunity to engage with their own care and support them in that, and let them know they're doing a good job and they're getting there. And if it gets tough, it's just a process. We can get through this together. I promise you, we can get through it. Let's just keep going. And when they see the results, they get excited. I wish that I could share with you some of the voicemails I get to really understand the excitement that they have, because they start feeling empowered. And when you can initiate that in somebody, that piece alone is worth all the money in the world. And it saves money because it's giving them the opportunity to take control. Instead of everybody else doing the work, now they're doing the work. And that's one of my things. I do what I can, when I can. But they have to do the work, because otherwise it holds no value. I'll hold the hope. You do the work, and I'll support you all the way through. And that's why it works.
There's this perception about peer work that we have value, but our value is a limit. Peers come in on the ground level with our class members, and there's this perception that there's a limit to what we can do. And I'd like to actually challenge that limit, because I think that there's just so much to be said about coming alongside somebody and helping them, sometimes holding their hand, but also sitting by them and listening to what their trauma has been. And some of that transforms those people. There's an individual that had to tell me, and he spent 5 hours in the car. He had to tell me about his 3 different experiences at Western. And I listened, and I sat there, and I listened, because he had to get it out. He had to tell me what he went through at Western. And so he was talking, he needed to get out, like, this is what happened to me. Because oftentimes when I interact with peers or the first time, I'm like, tell me what happened to you. You know, what actually happened? And when that moment comes with each peer, because there's always that moment when they just finally open the floodgates and let you in, you know, there's no better time just to stay as long as you can stay with that peer and let them tell you their story and create a safe space for that story. There's just, I see a lot of potential in the peer field, and not only just with Trueblood and the class members with the severely mentally ill and substance use disorders. I see it all through that spectrum, and especially in the criminal justice system, because circumstances happen to people all the time and they end up in the criminal justice system. Having a peer come next to them and say, it's okay, it's okay, you're okay here. I support you. I honor your presence. I'm interested. It's transforming to those individuals, because oftentimes they come into that and their whole world is shattered and they don't feel safe.
There's this mystery around peer support. We don't know what it is, we don't know why it works, and we were talking about this before. So I think that it's important. There's no mystery about peer support. We've been through it, and no matter what it is that a peer needs to talk about, we can directly address those things. If somebody is an addict, they're an addict. We know what that looks like. We know what that feels like. We know what it's like to recover from that. The motivation behind that is that they see me in recovery, and they see how I'm supporting them. They want to do what I do because they're getting the help that they need. And that perpetuates them helping others that are in their cohort of community members. So when I help somebody over here as a peer, that peer is passing that on to the next. And really, that's the connection, that's the mystery. Why does it work? It works because we're peers. It works because we understand where they're at, and we meet them where they're at, and we help lift them up and inspire them. When they're on their own feet and we get the supports put in that they need, which is natural supports, or it's going to be community supports, doctors, clergy, any kind of social outreach program, medical on board, then you have the mental health on board, the meds are on board. When you put all of those things in place, when you step away, they're still supported. So when I'm reconnecting them with family members, and we're talking about recovery, and I'm able to connect them to a family member that has just totally put them in the dust and that's it, there's no more, not going to happen. I have reconnected people and their relationships have bonded over again. And it's amazing to watch that happen, because now I get giggles over the phone. You know what me and Mom did? And they haven't even seen each other, talked to each other in 10, 12 years. And it's important to know that when a peer steps into that role, the first thing is about that support. How are we going to support that peer, and how is that peer going to continue to be able to be in their recovery if all their supports are taken away? They're going to end up the same place, no revolving door. We get those pieces put in place so that they stay supported, and they know how to get through those systems of care, and they know who to reach out to when they need to. So that they stay in their recovery and they stay in their wellness. Everybody has an opportunity to be well. And in my role and in the mystery of what we do, it really isn't a mystery. We've just been through the same gamut, but unfortunately, I didn't get the peer support. Trueblood is going to be the best piece, because you know what? People aren't going to have a background that's going to become a barrier to housing, a barrier to care, a barrier to jobs, a barrier to other things that they could do later on. I got hired in my job. I had a background check done. Well, thank goodness nothing showed up. But I think that in the day, things would have shown up and I would not have this job. And I think that if we take down the barriers to get more peers involved, so that we can do the work, I can't be squeaky clean as a peer, because no peer is. Everybody has some kind of history. You're going to have people that have done some really horrible things during the time that they were ill. When in their wellness, you never have to worry about those things, because they are the person that they are within, and that's who you're going to see in their wellness, not the person you see while they're in their symptoms.
I would love to see government support for peer work, hands down. I think that if we had a local government support in peer work, we could move throughout the industry. There could be a lot more movement in the medical industry, you know, in the behavioral health industry, in the substance use industry, absolutely. Because I have found in chemical dependency agencies, substance use disorder agencies, you're with a CDC or with a clinician, and they're asking you questions. And you're asking them, I remember being that class member and saying, so what was your drug of choice? What was your DOC? Talk to me about your story. And they can't. They don't. And they're bound by laws not to. But us peers are not bound by that. You know, we're able to share our story and say, listen, this is what I went through. This is what happened to me. And I was able, in that, I was able to get to the other side. And because I was able to get to the other side, and I thought I would, you can too.
Medicaid needs to pay for direct services because they work. And it's much less expensive when you've got somebody there supporting someone through their services and helping them navigate through those agencies and organizations and things that hold they're the key keepers, right? And if they can't make it through those doors because of their mental health, if they're in bed symptomatic with depression at a point where they don't want to live and nobody's checking on them, that's a mortality rate I don't think anybody wants to really own. And I think that part of the work that we do, it increases the validity of the peer, and it brings the peer away from those kind of things.
Allowing a foundation for peers to work and do their work the right way. And someone touched on the parameters of Medicaid funding on peer work, and you know, that in itself, you know, there has to be, what would help is a more comprehensive program for peer work, and honestly, you know, something that's funded through the state and allows that peer to do the work they need to do to get to where they need to get to with their class member. So the support of the state agencies, support of, you know, private industry, you know, all that. Having that support in peer work is it's beneficial that we're supported, both financially and academically.